There exists a deeply ingrained human reflex, almost an involuntary twitch, when confronted with any form of challenge, criticism, or perceived threat to one's standing. It is the immediate, overwhelming urge to explain, to justify, to defend. Imagine a scenario. Someone, perhaps a colleague, a family member, or even a stranger online, casts a shadow of doubt upon your motives, questions your integrity, or subtly undermines your achievements. In that precise, silent fraction of a second, the vast majority of individuals succumb to a conditioned response. They leap to their own defense, meticulously constructing their case, presenting their evidence, and pleading for understanding. They operate under the misguided belief that by clarifying their position, by meticulously explaining their actions, they will somehow regain control, that the sheer force of truth will liberate them from the accusation. They often adopt the posture of the wronged party, the innocent victim caught in a web of circumstance or malicious intent. This is not merely a personal inclination, it is a pervasive societal expectation, a deeply embedded norm. Yet from a strategic vantage point, this conventional wisdom represents a profound and often fatal miscalculation. It is the very act of defense that often seals one's fate in the intricate dance of power. But for Niccolo Machiavelli, that very moment of defense is the precise instant you willingly cede your power. The compulsion to justify yourself, to offer explanations, implicitly validates the accusation leveled against you. It is an unspoken admission, conveyed through your actions, that you are indeed vulnerable enough to require such a defense. You concede, without uttering a single word, that the other person's judgment, their perception, holds a superior sway over your own reality. In the unforgiving arena of power dynamics, percept. Ion is not merely a facet of reality, it is reality. If your adversaries detect even a flicker of hesitation, a frantic scramble to explain, they do not perceive a victim seeking justice or clarity. Instead, they identify a weakness, an opening. They sense blood in the water, an opportunity to press their advantage. This, then, is the coldest, most brutal, yet undeniably effective law that Machiavelli grasped with unparalleled clarity. The individual who engages in defense has already begun to lose. The act itself is a concession, a surrender of the psychological high ground. Let us establish this principle with absolute clarity. The act of defending oneself rarely, if ever, persuades those whose opinions genuinely matter. What it invariably achieves is a significant transfer of power, shifting it away from you and directly into the hands of your accuser. The truly formidable, the genuinely powerful, disdain such futile exercises. They embrace the silence, allowing the accusation to hang suspended in the air, unacknowledged, unengaged. Their profound understanding stems from this critical insight. The most potent countermove is to transform the accusation into a mirror. By refusing to react, you compel your accuser to confront the inherent emptiness or manipulative intent behind their own attack. You project an aura of unshakable certainty, an impenetrable psychological fortress that disarms and destabilizes your opponent. This strategic posture is not about seeking external validation or approval. It is, fundamentally, about asserting and maintaining absolute control over your own narrative and your own psychological space. It is a silent declaration of self-possession that few can withstand. To truly grasp the power of non-defense, we must dissect the psychological fallacies that underpin the urge to defend. Most people are driven by a deeply ingrained, almost childlike desire to be understood. They believe in a world of rational actors where clarity leads to consensus and consensus leads to harmony. They yearn to be perceived as good, fair, and reasonable, and they believe that any accusation to the contrary is a stain that must be immediately and vigorously scrubbed away. This yearning for external validation, for having one's goodness reflected back at them, is a profound strategic weakness. It is a vulnerability that the Machiavellian mind not only recognizes, but also exploits with surgical precision. This desire for validation stems from a place of emotional reactivity, not calculated strategy. The fundamental error is in the objective. You are not seeking clarity. You are, or should be, seeking control. Clarity is a therapeutic goal, a noble pursuit in personal relationships built on trust and mutual respect. But in the realm of power, in the cold, hard calculus of social dynamics, control is the only currency that matters. The moment you engage in a defensive posture, you validate the very premise of the attack. You implicitly agree that there is a case to be answered, a doubt to be assuaged, a potential flaw in your character or actions that requires explanation. This immediately places you on the defensive, in a reactive stance, ceding the initiative, the momentum, and the psychological high ground to your opponent. The Machiavellian strategist understands a crucial truth. The perception of guilt or weakness is often not a pre-existing condition, but a direct consequence of the act of defense itself. By refusing to engage, by remaining a calm, unmoving center in the storm of accusation, you deny the attack the emotional fuel it needs to burn. You starve it of the oxygen of your reaction. You force the accuser to stand alone with their accusation, which, without the validation of your defense, often reveals itself as baseless, manipulative, or simply desperate. Your silence becomes a powerful statement, a testament to your unshakable self-possession. It communicates far more effectively than any words could that you are the ultimate arbiter of your own worth, and that the opinions of others, particularly those who seek to diminish you, are of no consequence. Let us now translate this abstract principle into concrete, actionable tactics for common everyday scenarios. Imagine you are in a social gathering, a seemingly innocuous environment. Someone, perhaps a rival, or someone who simply resents your success, makes a passive-aggressive comment about a recent achievement of yours, subtly implying that it was undeserved, a product of luck rather than merit. The conventional, almost instinctual response would be to immediately launch into a detailed, almost desperate, recitation of your hard work, your qualifications, your struggles, your sacrifices. You would, in essence, be pleading your case before a self-appointed judge and jury. The Machiavellian operator, however, chooses a different path, a path of calculated inaction. They say nothing. They offer no defense, no retaliation, not even a subtle smirk of defiance. They simply maintain calm, unwavering eye contact, perhaps offering a slight, almost imperceptible nod, as if acknowledging a trivial, inconsequential observation. In that moment of profound stillness, you become untouchable. Your silence speaks with a deafening roar, conveying a level of unshakable confidence that requires no external validation. The accuser is left dangling, their carefully crafted barb having found no purchase, no emotional reaction to latch onto. The power dynamic shifts in an instant. They, not you, are now the one who appears petty, insecure, and desperate for a reaction. Their attempt to diminish you has only served to diminish themselves. Let's consider another scenario. A colleague, in a team meeting, subtly attempts to undermine your proposal, framing it as overly ambitious, impractical, or naive. The temptation to leap to the defense of your idea, to meticulously rebut every point, is immense. But the strategic mind resists this temptation. Instead of defending, you might calmly state, with a neutral, almost detached tone, "That's an interesting perspective. I appreciate you raising that point." Then you pivot. You don't engage with their frame. You subtly but decisively shift the frame to your advantage. You might ask a question that forces them to consider the benefits of your idea, or you might direct the conversation to a different, more favorable aspect of your proposal. For example, while there are certainly challenges, as with any ambitious project, the potential for market disruption is significant. Let's talk about the long-term strategic advantages. The immediate, observable shift is that their attempt to derail your proposal has been neutralized without a direct confrontation. Your composure, your refusal to be drawn into a defensive posture, reinforces your authority and your control over the narrative. You have not only defended your idea, you have elevated it, and yourself, above the petty squabbles of the meeting room. Having established the foundational principle of non-defense, we now ascend to the realm of truly colder moves, the elite tactics that distinguish the Machiavellian strategist from the merely reactive. These are not for the faint of heart, nor for those who cling to conventional notions of morality. These are the strategies that truly destabilize opponents and secure an unassailable position of power. Consider this. Sometimes you don't merely ignore an accusation, you subtly, almost imperceptibly, invert it. Imagine someone labels you as manipulative, ruthless, or self-serving. The average individual would instinctively recoil, launch into a vehement denial, and desperately attempt to prove their benevolence, their good intentions. The Machiavellian operator, however, employs a different, far more unsettling approach. They might offer a slight, almost imperceptible smile, a fleeting glint in their eye, then look past the accuser as if contemplating a profound, unspoken truth. With a calm, measured tone, they might simply state, "If that's how you see it." Or, even more subtly, "Perhaps you're right to be cautious." This response is a psychological judo throw. You have taken their weapon, the accusation, and transformed it into a feather, a triviality. You have acknowledged their perception without validating its truth, leaving them suspended in an uncomfortable state of ambiguity. They are forced to grapple with the implications of their own statement, to question their own judgment, rather than revel in the satisfaction of your reaction. Another elite maneuver is the preemptive non-defense. If you anticipate an attack, a criticism, or an accusation, you subtly introduce the very criticism yourself, but in a way that reframes it as a strength, a necessary evil, or an unavoidable consequence of your superior approach. For instance, in a professional setting, you might casually remark, "Some might argue that my focus on efficiency is overly intense, even ruthless. But in this hyper-competitive market, anything less would be a disservice to our stakeholders." By openly acknowledging and even embracing the perceived negative, you strip it of its power before it can be wielded against you. You demonstrate a profound self-awareness and an unshakable conviction in your methods, leaving your detractors with nothing new to say. The psychological mechanism at play here is deeply profound. You deny your opponent the visceral satisfaction of landing a blow, and instead you compel them to reevaluate their own judgment, often leading to self-doubt and a significant erosion of their confidence in their own attack. This is not about winning an argument, it's about controlling the very terms of engagement. These principles of non-defense and strategic inversion extend far beyond casual social interactions, finding their most potent application in high-stakes environments. Consider a critical business negotiation. An opposing party attempts to derail your proposal by meticulously highlighting a minor flaw, a perceived weakness in your strategy. The conventional response would be to launch into a detailed point-by-point defense of every aspect of your plan, attempting to minimize or explain away the flaw. The Machiavellian approach is entirely different. You acknowledge the flaw, perhaps even amplify it slightly, demonstrating your comprehensive understanding. Then, with an almost imperceptible shift, you pivot to the overwhelming, undeniable benefits that dwarf the minor imperfection. Yes, there is a calculated risk in this particular area, but the potential for unprecedented market disruption and exponential growth far outweighs it. We are not playing for small gains, we are playing for dominance. You control the narrative not by denying the negative, but by subsuming it within a larger, more compelling positive. You dictate the terms of the discussion, forcing your opponents to consider the grander vision rather than getting bogged down in minutiae. In the realm of romantic or personal relationships, this principle, while ethically complex, can be profoundly effective. If a partner, in a moment of emotional distress or manipulation, declares, "You don't care about me anymore," the natural emotionally driven response is to list every single act of care, every sacrifice, every gesture of affection. But the Machiavellian mind understands that such a statement is often a test, a bid for control, or an emotional outburst designed to elicit a specific reaction. A calm, almost detached response, such as, "That's not how I see it," Or, "I understand you feel that way," followed by a deliberate change of subject or a physical disengagement, can be profoundly unsettling. It denies them the emotional reaction they seek, forcing them to internalize their own statement and confront its potential baselessness. This is not about being uncaring. It is about refusing to be drawn into an emotional battle where the very act of defense is the defeat. It is about maintaining your emotional sovereignty in the face of emotional blackmail. The world, through its myriad social conditioning mechanisms, teaches us to defend our reputation, to explain ourselves, to clear our name. It instills in us the comforting yet strategically debilitating belief that truth will inevitably prevail if only we articulate it with sufficient clarity and conviction. But Machiavelli, with his unblinking gaze upon human nature, saw the inherent trap in this conventional wisdom. He understood that the moment you embark on the futile quest to prove your innocence, you implicitly and fatally admit to the possibility of guilt. The most common pitfall, the Achilles heel for most individuals, is the overwhelming emotional need to be understood, to be liked, to be perceived as good or fair. This emotional vulnerability is precisely the leverage point that the strategic mind identifies and exploits. You might find yourself asking, "Won't I be seen as cruel, cold, or manipulative if I refuse to defend myself?" The Machiavellian response to such a question is stark and uncompromising. Does it truly matter if you achieve your ultimate objective? The paramount goal is effectiveness and control, not adherence to conventional morality or the fleeting approval of others. The greatest mistake one can make when attempting to implement this strategy is to waver, to succumb to the deeply ingrained urge to explain, to justify. Consistency in non-defense is not merely advisable, it is absolutely critical. Any crack in the facade, any moment of emotional reaction, any lapse into the old patterns of justification and the carefully constructed illusion of unshakable power shatters. The truly powerful understand that perception is not merely a component of reality, it is, in the social and political sphere, the entirety of reality. By meticulously controlling their own reactions, by refusing to be drawn into the reactive dance, they exert profound control over the perception others hold of them. They become the architects of their own narrative, unburdened by the need for external validation. Let us, then, engrave upon our minds Machiavelli's coldest, most brutal, yet undeniably profound and effective rule. Never defend yourself. This is not merely a tactical suggestion. It is a fundamental shift in perspective, a reorientation of your entire approach to human interaction. The vast majority of humanity operates under a deeply flawed premise that power is attained through validation, through winning arguments, through meticulously proving one's innocence. They believe that by engaging in the intellectual and emotional skirmish of defense, they are asserting their strength. But Machiavelli, with his unblinking gaze fixed on the raw mechanics of power, would offer a sardonic smirk at such naivete. He understood with chilling clarity that the very act of attempting to prove anything immediately elevates the accuser's judgment to a position of authority over your own. You implicitly concede that their opinion is valid enough to warrant your response, thereby granting them a power they likely do not deserve. Herein lies the profound, almost cruel paradox. The more vehemently you explain yourself, the more desperately you seek to clarify, the more isolated, the more vulnerable, and ultimately the more guilty you appear. Your frantic efforts to clear your name only serve to cast a longer shadow of doubt. The truly powerful, the Machiavellian elite, grasp that their reality is an internal construct, a fortress of self-possession impervious to external opinion. Their actions, or more precisely their lack of reactive action, speak with a far greater eloquence than any words could. They do not engage in the futile exercise of convincing. Their objective is to control the narrative by refusing to participate in any narrative that seeks to diminish them. They understand that the truth, in the realm of power, is often less important than the perception of truth, and that perception is most powerfully shaped by what you don't do. The ultimate evolution of this Machiavellian principle transcends mere silence. It culminates in the cultivation of an aura. It is a presence so utterly composed, so profoundly secure in its own intrinsic worth, so far removed from the petty clamor of accusations and criticisms, that such attacks simply dissipate, losing all force before they can even reach you. Imagine navigating the complexities of the world, radiating an unshakable calm, an impenetrable confidence that disarms and intimidates. Accusations, once potent weapons, now bounce off you like water off a polished stone. You command respect not through overt demands or aggressive posturing, but by embodying it. This profound power does not stem from brute force, nor from emotional outbursts, but from a meticulously crafted internal shift, a strategic design of your own psychological landscape. You become, in essence, untouchable, not because you are physically invulnerable, but because you steadfastly refuse to engage in battles that are inherently designed to deplete your energy and undermine your position. This is the zenith of strategic living, the point at which power ceases to be a struggle and becomes an effortless extension of your very being, a natural emanation of your cultivated mindset. Niccolo Machiavelli, in his stark realism, was not concerned with conventional notions of goodness or morality. His singular focus was on control. And the individual who consistently refuses to defend themselves is, by definition, always in control of perception, even when surrounded by a cacophony of lies, even when confronted with the most baseless of accusations. This mastery, this profound shift in your operational paradigm, is not achieved overnight. It is a deliberate, painstaking process, built like an impregnable fortress, stone by stone, through consistent, unwavering practice. It demands the conscious choice of stillness over reactive impulse. It requires embracing the uncomfortable yet liberating truth that your silence, your refusal to engage, is often the most thunderous and impactful statement you can make. Internalize this coldest rule, apply it with an unwavering, almost ruthless consistency, and you will begin to witness a profound transformation in your interactions, in your influence, and in your very understanding of the world. The journey to unshakable power is arduous, fraught with challenges, but the foundational, most critical step is this: to unequivocally refuse the role of the victim. There are deeper layers to uncover, more intricate strategies to master in the art of strategic living. Continue this journey with us and unlock further insights into the hidden mechanics of power, influence, and self-mastery. The path to true control awaits those brave enough to walk it.